All right, everybody, what is going on? This is going to be a fun little video, I think. And by fun, I mean, it's just going to be kind of a way for me to vent some frustrations that I've been having about the game here. And just in connection to Worldwide Celebration, it kind of helps me bring up some points about the game I've been wanting to talk about for a little bit. And I've talked about in videos before, and people have talked about these things before, and everyone knows these things exist. But I think just highlighting them now as we're going into the Worldwide Celebration is going to be kind of a fun topic to talk about. So I may have clickbaited you guys a little bit with the title. I have a working plan in my head for what I'm going to title this, but this video is going to be just going over. I'm probably going to call this the issue with Broly. Also, you guys probably don't want to just stare at this flower this entire time. So here we go. We can pull some sharks up real quick for you guys to look at. I'm probably going to call this, the problem with Broly and Dokkan, or why Broly is bad in Dokkan. I haven't quite decided that yet. This is more going to be going over why villains are just weird in Dokkan and why I just don't like the approach that Dokkan takes with villains in the game. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Broly. As we know, Broly has been confirmed for the Worldwide Celebration, at least for Part 1. We know that it's going to be Broly versus Goku. Now, we don't know what Part 2 is going to be. It could very easily be, the second Broly movie and the Family Kamehameha. It would be a little bit weird, I think, to get double Broly, but, it is definitely, I mean, we've gotten, Metal Cooler and Cooler before, right? And it wasn't, that big of a deal, but at the same time, I feel like Metal Cooler and Cooler are different enough that it, wasn't a big deal, whereas going from, Broly to Broly would not... it'd be a little bit strange, right? It'd be like having the same character for both celebrations. My quick thought is that they could go into BoJack. If they did Broly versus Goku and then BoJack versus Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, I think that would be a really, really good worldwide. But here's what I want to talk about, right? Now, whenever we let's circle back real quick and let's talk about this guy right here, Cooler. Do you guys want the sharks still? Let me get rid of the sharks. I'm sorry. If you guys wanted the sharks, let me know in the comments. I'll bring the sharks back for another video. But let's talk about Cooler and why the Cooler Worldwide worked so well. So Cooler, if you guys don't know, this was Worldwide Celebration 2 years ago now. So this year it's going to be Broly. Last year it was, Cooler. I'm sorry, not Cooler. It was Vegito and Zamasu and Trunks and Future Gohan, Future Saga themed or whatever it was. I guess technically the theme was Connect or Connection or whatever, but anyway, and then a year before that was the Cooler movie one, and as you guys know, Cooler brought in this nice little leader skill of Terrifying Conquerors, movie bosses, and then he gave extra boost to Transformation Boost category, right? This was a really, really good leader skill because as you guys know, most villains in the entirety of Dragon Ball are going to be on Terrifying Conquerors, if we go all the way back to the Red Ribbon Army, the Red Ribbon Army is going to be on Terrifying Conquerors. You go to Demon King Piccolo, he's on Terrifying Conquerors. You go to Raditz, he's on Terrifying Conquerors. You go to the Saiyan Saga Saiyans in general, they're on Terrifying Conquerors. You go to Frieza, he's on Terrifying Conquerors. You go to you get back to the Android Saga, they're not really on Terrifying Conquerors. You get Cell, he's not on it as well. So this kind of excludes Cell and Android characters, doesn't really include them here. But then you go to all the I guess you go to Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super doesn't really have any Terrifying Conquerors, but regardless, right? You got Terrifying Conquerors and GT, but you go to the movies. The movies that's where we get the wealth of our villains. It's you get Garlic Jr., who's going to be on Terrifying Conquerors, and then just movie bosses, right? You get sorry, I'm trying to remember all the different movies in my head, but you get Lord Slug, you get Turles, you get Cooler, obviously, you get Metal Cooler, you get Broly. Most Golden Frieza's on Terrifying Conquerors, movie bosses, right? You get Beerus gets put on here. So you get all these characters that fall under this leader skill. Janemba is another character. Sorry, he just came to mind. That fall on this leader skill, and that made Cooler a really, really, really good leader for villains because suddenly pretty much every major relevant villain in the series, other than Cell and the androids basically, fell under this guy's leader skill, which was awesome. Not only that, Cooler has a pretty solid link set all together, right? Big Bad Bosses, Metamorphosis, Thirst for Conquest, Fierce Battle, Legendary Power. That's a nice little set of 4 links, or actually 5 links right there that are going to link well with other villains. I always say Janemba is the standard for the perfect villain link set because he just kind of has he doesn't have any of these kinds of links, like strongest clan in space, universe's most malevolent. Most other villains are going to have like 2 links that are, how do I say this, like attributable only to like them and their kinds of characters. And so whenever you use them around other villains of their, not even their like typing, that's not the right word, like other villains of their, what's the word, like species, can I say species? That's kind of like where these extra links fall into. So that's why I consider Janimba's link set a pure villain link set. If I can like find him here, hang on, let me pull him up. All right, here we go. We got Janimba pulled up. But yeah, I consider like LR Janimba here, or even like Int Janimba. This is like a pure villain link set. You've got big bad bosses, shocking speed, metamorphosis, brutal beatdown, fear and faith, fierce battle, legendary power. If you look at Janimba's, they will share pretty much 5 links with every other villain in the game. Like, look at this. Boo Tanks. I said them in the wrong order, but you guys get the point. Omega. Sorry, excuse me. Omega, Super Boo, Frieza he shares 4 links with. The Coolers he shares 4 links with. Like, Hirudegarn he shares 4 links with. This guy shares... You guys see, like, even Android 13 he shares links with. So, Rose. So that's why I consider Janimba. Janimba has just like the perfect villain link set. Like in all seriousness, Janimba in Dokkan is like what we want all villains to look like. Like if every villain just dropped with a link set like this, instead of having like their links that are specific only to them, just like for example right here, if I click on Omega, right, we go to him. If I can please go to him. Thank you. Omega is going to have, he's got some of those links, but then he's got like Shadow Dragons and GT, right? Well, that's not going to link well with like another good example being like Baby, right? Like even Baby, who's also in GT, he's got, what is this? Hatred of Saiyans. He's got Saiyan Roar because he's like a giant transformation unit, right? We can go to the Coolers. We already talked about them. They have Strongest Clan in Space. We can go to like Turles right here. What is it? Strongest Clan in Space and what's the other one that they have? Cooler and Frieza units have 2. It's Universe's Most Malevolent or whatever. They've got both of those links. Turles has got Destroyer of the Universe, which is basically just like the Turles link. Only Turles and his minions have this link. Another good one would be even like Piccolo Jr., right? Like Piccolo Jr.'s link set is okay. But as a giant form character, he's got like, transform, and then he's also got the incredible adventure and guidance of the Dragon Balls. So that's just 2 links because he's like a Dragon Ball Saga-ish character. Technically, he's not on the Dragon Ball Saga, but he's just got 2 links right here that are just dead and not going to work well generally with other villains unless we get like another villain. That's what I was saying of like his species. It's not necessarily that I'm saying species as like a like literal Namekian. I just mean like basically like another Piccolo Jr. or another Namekian. In this case, it is species, but like, Metal Coolers, they have a link. What is it? It's auto regeneration right here that pretty much only other Metal Coolers have. What's another one that I could go to? Oh, Cell. Cell is the worst offender. Like if you go to any Cell unit right here, let me just type in Cell, right? Let's go to int LR Cell right here, this bastard. It's like they have Gentleman, like one of the worst links, Ultimate Life Form, and Messenger from the Future, like, or you go to Perfect Cell, what does he have? He switches out something for, what is it? Also Kamehameha. How many other villains are going to have Kamehameha, right? He gets, Revival, it's like this Ultimate Life Form. It's just garbage. And so that's where I bring over to Broly is, we want villains to release in Dokkan. We want villains. We want to have a lot of villains. Broly, though, is a terrible, 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 terrible choice for a villain leader. I'm sorry, but he is. And most of that is because of his links, Like, if they introduce Broly, it's not going to be like whenever they released Cooler. Or that's not Cooler. Where is he? Right here. So Cooler. Cooler was great, because he's got a pretty solid link set other than Universe's Most Malevolent and Strongest Clan in Space. He's going to share, this core set of links right here with a lot of other units. And most villains in the game are based around having big bad bosses in particular. That is a very, 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 very important link for most villains. And so if you're running a leader unit that doesn't have big bad bosses, that instantly means that you're going to have two characters on your team that don't have that link. And it's just going to be harder to get that link active with your other characters. I know that leaves 5 for you to get it active with, but still, that's just, you're just introducing characters that aren't going to work well with other, villains. And the other thing about Broly too, right? Like we're talking about Cooler here and how he was great. He had a great leader skill. He's got a great link set. He's on all these different teams. He's on movie bosses, terrifying conquerors, whatever else, right? Like transformation boost, space traveling warriors. A lot of other villains share these similar categories, just because like a lot of the other villains have, they transform, they're from space, they're evil conquerors, right? Like they all share these links, and so they all work well together. And then in part 2, it was really awesome because we got more, right? We got Metal Cooler, who had basically all the same categories. He's got like a nice solid link set as well. And so you were able to build this really cohesive villain team off of one major celebration, granted, but granted. But it all worked together to build like this really powerful villain team. And anybody who was running the Cooler team back then knew it's like, yeah, we finally had a team that just felt good to run with villains, right? And it just felt really all encompassing. It was awesome. Like everybody loved it. The thing about Broly, right, is that I don't know that he's going to be able to bring in that same effect, because look at his links. Saiyan Warrior Race, Super Saiyan, Saiyan Lineage, Hardened Grudge, Prepared for Battle, Berserker, and Fierce Battle. Who is he sharing links with? Is he sharing links with Cell Max? Does Cell Max have Hardened Grudge? I guess Cell Max does have Berserker, but Berserker just sucks. But does Cell Max have Super Saiyan? Like, I'm bringing up Cell Max as an example because Cell Max is like one of the best movie bosses. Actually, he is the best movie bosses character in the game at this moment. So it's like, is he going to he's not going to share Super Saiyan with them. So it's just like, you look at this, right? And it's like, yeah, Broly's cool, but he's not going to work well with any of the other villains. And that's just like my issue is that none of these, like for the most part, none of these villains really work well together because they all have these like really samey links. And that's where in particular, Broly is the worst offender. I can get on Cell, but at least Cell has big bad bosses, right? Like Cell at least has that. Broly's not going to share hardly any links with the other movie bosses' characters. I mean, that's part of the reason why I didn't like Dragon Ball Super Broly. I guess Dragon Ball Super Broly, though, wasn't a movie bosses leader. He led full power super bosses and it's not Miraculous Awakening, is it? No, because that's Beast. It's super bosses, full power. I can't remember the other one, but still, the point being here is that like he didn't make for a great villain leader. He fit okay on villain teams because he's pretty self-sufficient, but he didn't make for a great cohesive leader for other villains. His best spot is with other Saiyans and other Super Saiyan units. And so you're more likely to run him with a bunch of superclass units than you are with a bunch of villains because that's who he's designed to work with. He's got like a standard Saiyan link set, and the Saiyans work well with the Saiyans, So they're introducing this villain unit into the game. That's awesome. I'm glad that they're introducing him, but they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to give him extreme class support. They're going to have to give him, it'd be really, really good. Best case scenario, if they get rid of Hardened Grudge for big bad bosses, oh, Dokkan, please. Please, they have to do it. I know we say this like every time we get a Broly unit, like, oh, if they would just give him big bad boss, because it matters. There's a reason why people are on their knees, man. Just like they're going every day saying, Omatsu, please. Like they're writing fan mail and they're saying, give this guy big bad bosses. First of all, he's like one of the most evil guys. Broly is constantly cackling about how he's a demon and just going to kill everyone for fun. If that's not a big bad boss, I don't know what is. So I quit with this stupid, like, oh, this character's this, so they have to have these like specific 7 links. Like, no, stop. Nobody wants to run a character with two of their links being taken up by Berserker and Hardened Grudge. Nobody wants that. Stop doing that, Dokkan. I want to run all my villains together, because you know what they're going to do is they're going to introduce, hey, here's this really hard, really difficult new fight. Go beat it with a bunch of extreme class units. You're going to go, oh, okay, yeah, I'd love to do that. But none of my extreme class units work together. You build this team that's just not cohesive. It doesn't work. You know, when you can just like build a superhero team or a Super Saiyan team or any other team, and it just cohesively gels and feels really good. Whereas like these types of teams just don't. Luckily, Broly does share a lot of decent categories with other villains. You know, Planetary Destruction's a common villain category. Inhuman Deeds, movie bosses, full power target Goku. Like he does share a lot of categories with them, so that's good. You know, you'll be able to get a lot of value out of a Broly unit. But him not linking with other villains, maybe it's just me. Maybe I come from an older time in Dokkan whenever, you know, links mattered a lot more than they do now, just because characters are very self-sufficient with Ki. But I still feel like you can feel when a team is not cohesive, and Broly is just not cohesive with other villains, and it's not his fault. It's the devs for constantly pushing these just like link sets that only work well with other characters at the same type. You know, you want to run your Boos with your Boos. You want to run your Coolers with your Coolers. You want to run your Friezas with your Friezas. You know, speaking of Frieza, we got a Pod Frieza earlier this year. Yay, awesome, yahoo! He's dead. You can't do anything with that Frieza because they haven't released a single Terrifying Conqueror this year, and they built him around Terrifying Conqueror. What were they thinking? What were they thinking? Now, part two could be Bojack, right? And we could see some more easy A's, and it could really help Frieza out. That is definitely possible. I would love to see that happen. But even still, now you're kind of splintering your villain teams, right? You're going to introduce like a Broly in part 1, and then you're going to introduce a Bojack in part 2. And not that necessarily they can't be used together, but villains are at their best whenever they focus on like one team and they say, okay, like super bosses, we are going to buff super bosses, or like with Cooler, it was Terrifying Conquerors. You know, if they just pick like one of the types of villain, right, and they just kind of push buffing that. Like if they wanted to do Terrifying Conquerors and they wanted to do Bojack, right, we've got this Frieza out, and maybe they're going to easy a Cooler or something, you know, like I don't know. And they're going to release like Lord Slug. I'm just spitballing here, right? Like it makes sense and it feels good and it feels cohesive. But whenever they want to drop like, okay, part 1's going to be Broly and then part 2 is going to be Bojack, it's like, yeah, they share movie bosses, but like they don't really work together because they don't link together, and it just becomes very awkward to run these units together whenever you have like these Thirst for Conquest big bad bosses units, and then you've got Broly who's a Saiyan, and it just doesn't work with them. So I don't know. That's my problem with Broly. He's awesome. I think Broly is super cool. I'm happy to get new Brolys. My issue with Brolys is that they just don't work with other villains that well. They could. I don't really envision Broly as a support type unit, but they could make him one, I guess. But it's just, you know, it just like we. Part of the reason I really wanted to see, people are going to be like, oh, you're just butthurt, you're not getting Demon King Piccolo. No, but part of the reason I was somewhat hopeful for getting a Demon King Piccolo is because he would have been a Terrifying Conqueror's buff, and suddenly them releasing Frieza wouldn't have seemed like such a waste. If they release Broly here, I mean, which they are, we already know they're releasing Broly, it just makes me go, what? Like, every other release this year felt planned out, and then I look at Frieza and go, what were they doing? What were they doing? They dropped, you know, Rose, but then they dropped like a million super bosses. They dropped, who's another good example? I don't know, Jiren. They dropped Jiren, but then they dropped a ton of Universe 11 buffs. It's like, what are we doing with Frieza, guys? Like, what are we doing? So, I don't know. Anyway, in summary, villains should link better. They need to stop doing these shitty, like, oh, you have to link your villains with each other, otherwise they're not going to work well. Like, stop doing that. Villains need more respect, and villains require better planning. You know, they try to drop villains like they drop superclass units. The thing is like they can drop just like infinite superclass units, and it doesn't really matter because they're all just going to kind of work well together. Whereas with villains, it requires a much more like careful thought of where they're going to drop these and how they're going to do it. So we'll see. Broly could end up being like the savior of villains, but my initial thought is you're going to be running Broly on a superclass team, and that's where you're going to be using him. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about villains, and I'll catch you guys next time.